took her dog for a walk, and then simply vanished without a trace. Where is Nicola Bulley? Good evening. It is a mystery that has left a family traumatised, 2 young children desperate to know where their mum is, and millions asking the same question. What happened to Nicola Bulley? There's been so much speculation over the past 14 days. Tonight, we aim to separate fact from theory. In this special programme, we'll hear at length from Nicola's partner, Paul. He tells us more about the woman he loves, how agonising the past 2 weeks have been for him and his family, how they're trying to cope, and how he is still holding on to hope.
What we're going through now is like unprecedented hell. Personally, I'm 100% convinced it's not the river. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so do you remember that? Because he said, this was the interview where he said, he's only done 2 interviews. Paul only did 2 interviews. It was Emma who did 17 interviews or something like that. Paul only did 2 interviews. The one by the side of the river, this one. And he also released, he sent Sky News a voice note. I don't know if you remember that. We probably can have a look at that at some point, because this weekend, after the Burns night tomorrow, it's going to be all about the Burns night tomorrow. But after that, as it is now a year, it will have been a year, I will be doing a lot of Nicola Bulley videos over the weekend, just looking over different things and also some things that we haven't looked at before. But just, you know, to remind ourselves, Paul did 2 interviews, only 2, and he released the voice note to Sky News. And then there was another very brief sort of recording, a very bizarre recording of when the helicopters were flying overhead, and he released the audio of the girls saying, "Oh, those helicopters were looking for mummy." That was all we heard of Paul during the whole time. We haven't heard anything else from him except when he gave testimony at the inquest, which of course was not recorded. So this was the interview where he said it's definitely not the river.
We just have to find her.
In the studio with us tonight, the underwater search specialist called in by the family to scour that river. He's also convinced Nicola is not there.
Yeah. Remember that, Peter? God.
We'll have the latest on the investigation, live from St Michael's on Wire, the Lancashire village where Nicola was last seen. Later, we'll be talking to Nicola's friend, Emma White, and also here in the studio, 2 of Britain's most high-profile police experts.
He always gets in there, doesn't he, Mark Williams? Thomas, of course, that, you know, him and Peter are very good friends, aren't they? You know, they're like best buddies, BBFs. So wherever one is, the other one is normally not far away. So the other interesting thing there was Emma, of course, is a friend of Dan Walker's. So there's pictures of Emma together. You know, Emma has connections to media because her father was in the media, is in the media. I think he's retired now. So she has connections to media. She knew Dan Walker. The other thing that was quite strange about this interview, because it was done at Marsh Farm, wasn't it? It was done at Emma's house. And you see Paul being interviewed in the house, like, you know, when Dan is in the house. But when Emma later is giving her interview, they do it by Zoom, you know, so it's quite strange. It's all very contrived, you know, typical, you know, TV at the end of the day is contrived. It's not as it looks.
We're going to start for you tonight, though, with the latest on the situation and that search for Nicola Bulley. 5 News correspondent Peter Lane is in St Michael's on Wire for us this evening. Peter, good to talk to you. Let's start by running us through what we know. What's happened today?
Yeah, hi, Dan. Well, the search continues. Boats have been back on the river here, and tonight police have said they are keeping an open mind, looking at all potential scenarios. Now, when Nicola first disappeared, of course, people assumed there'd be a logical explanation, that she was bound to turn up. But then hours became days and now weeks, with still no clues, no answers. To hear her voice, Nicola's family have only the videos they filmed in happier times, and time.
That's very sad, isn't it? Seeing her there with the kids in happier times. Yeah, hearing her voice. Let's just watch that again.
And that search for Nicola Bulley. 5 News correspondent Peter Lane is in St Michael's on.
Those they filmed in happier times, and time matters.
Start by running us through what we know. What's happened today?
Yeah, hi, Dan. Well, the search continues. Boats have been back on the river here, and tonight police have said they are keeping an open mind, looking at all potential scenarios. Now, when Nicola first disappeared, of course, people assumed there'd be a logical explanation, that she was bound to turn up. But then hours became days and now weeks, with still no clues, no answers. To hear her voice, Nicola's family have only the videos they filmed in happier times, and time matters. It's now 2 weeks since she disappeared while walking their pet dog, Willow. This, the last image of Nicola setting off with Willow from the house that morning. We know she was seen near.
No, I don't know if you remember, but in the beginning, that was basically the only picture that was released. And we still haven't had the full CCTV. This will always be a complete mystery to me. I don't see why they've only shown bits and pieces of the CCTV. We haven't seen just what's sinister about it. Just them coming out of the house, getting in the car, loading up the car, the dogs, putting the dog in the car, putting the children in the car. Obviously, they could block out the children's faces. Watching the car drive away, and who was in it when it drove away. That will always be an enduring mystery to me, why they don't just transparently show the CCTV, because I don't think it's, the whole CCTV. Why give it in dribs and drabs? That's always been a thing to me, and it always will be.
The river. We know her phone was discovered on this bench, still dialed in to a work conference call, with Willow found nearby. But that's where everything stops, where her once normal routine turns into a mystery. For those closest to Nicola, the past fortnight has taken its toll.
Just this roller coaster of torture, despair. We've got to frustration now. The frustration is we are 2 weeks on. We have no news. We don't know anything. So we are telling the truth to the children. We literally know nothing.
Back on the water today, the search continued. Police still convinced Nicola is in the river, with, they say, nothing to suggest a criminal element.
Yeah, so this is what the police said from the beginning, wasn't it? They thought she was in the river, no suspicious circumstances, and that never wavered, despite the fact at the inquest suddenly we found out there were screams and there was a man in black. You just can keep on repeating all these anomalies. But this is where we were at this time when this interview was made, or when this program was made. I think she'd been missing for just over a week. Mr. Folding had been there, and well, now he's saying that he'd found her, but of course that's not going to be what he says on here. And no sign of her, no further on. Hi, Deke.
If this story doesn't end in the river, where does it take us? Nicola could have walked away from this area using a number of different routes, but so far there's no evidence of her leaving here, either alone or with someone else.
It is getting harder as time goes on. I think, it's the not knowing. It's not knowing, is she somewhere scared? Is she safe? It's the not knowing. We just desperately want to know where she is. And
This picture always looks photoshopped to me. I don't know why. It just does. Maybe sometimes I think that the way cameras are these days on phones, depending on what phone you got. I haven't got an iPhone, but sometimes I look at photos and I think they all look photoshopped. Maybe it's just the clarity. Maybe it's just the way, I don't know what it is, but this photo always looks photoshopped to me. But who knows?
The goal is to have a home and to have a safe with a family.
The river here hasn't changed. This peaceful spot.
I just want to pick up on what Maggie said there. I think you could be right, because Nikki definitely stomped off, didn't she? On the bit that we did see, it looked like Nikki was really angry. That's how it looked to me. So it could be that they don't show it because, maybe they were shouting at each other. Maybe she was upset. Who knows? And maybe that is why. They couldn't show the whole CCTV. It just seems odd. There must be a reason.
Hasn't changed. But for one family and the community around them, nothing feels the same.
Well, that's Peter Lane reporting for us this evening. And we've spoken to Lancashire Police about what you should do if you think you might be able to help this evening. They've told us anyone who might have information or perhaps even phone footage which they think is relevant should call 101 and say they want to talk about the Nicola Bulley investigation. For any immediate sightings, please call 999. That's the message from Lancashire Police. And we'll remind you of those numbers throughout the programme. But earlier today, I spent a couple of hours with Paul Ansell, that's Nicola's partner. I wasn't entirely sure how long the interview would last or what Paul would feel like he wanted to say, but he was prepared to talk at such length that we've decided to show the interview in sections throughout the programme.
Yeah, that was strange as well, because he said, that he wanted to talk so much. They've cut it into different sections. So it sounds like maybe he was reluctant to talk in the beginning, and then once he got talking, he just couldn't stop, The thing is, because I don't know Paul, I don't know him. I have no, I have no yardstick to judge him by. Do you know what I mean? So we don't know if he's normally talkative, if he's normally quiet. In this interview, we don't know, is that how he normally is? Because we do, we've got to give him the benefit of the doubt in a way, because we don't know him. He may always talk the way he talks in this interview. So, although it seems strange to us, but we don't know him, we don't know what he's normally like, I suppose.
Today is 2 weeks since Nikki went missing. This might be a stupid question to start with, but how are you doing? What's life been like for the last 2 weeks?
That was a stupid question. I thought the first thing I thought was, what stupid question? How are you doing? Oh, I'm great, thank you. So 2 weeks she's been missing.
Hell. I am still here, obviously. My main focus is the children, always has been. So that's my focus that gets me through. But I think when you're going through something like this, you can't put it into words. I can't say how I'm doing. I can't.
See, to me, Paul, and as I say, I don't know what he's normally like, so he may always look like that. He always looks like he's about to burst out laughing. I don't know. His eyes seem always amused. And, that, as I haven't got a sort of a yardstick to know whether that's maybe how his eyes always look. But that's the first thing, another thing that struck me, I thought he looks almost like he's going to laugh. Or maybe it's because he is in that dream state, you're thinking, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And sometimes you laugh because of nerves, and of course he did that on the riverbank. So maybe that's just, the surreality of it that is making him sort of, oh my God, I just can't believe this is happening.
Really explain it, because It's not your average every day of the thing. Nobody knows really anybody who's ever gone through anything like this. Who knows anybody who knows anybody? So it's just an impossible situation for everybody involved.
I think that's the thing, because it's hard to imagine what you're going through. Can you even put it into words for us, the sort of emotions that you're feeling at the moment?
Anger, utter frustration, confusion.
Now, that first emotion that you said there, anger, even one of my nieces, who is a psychology teacher, and she's not into true crime. She thinks I'm mad, really, but in a nice way. But, she's not really into true crime. But even she said, when we watched this, even she said, that's strange. Why did he say anger first? Why was his first emotion anger? You wouldn't think that'd be the first thing you'd say. You say, oh, desolation, desperation, heartbreak. There's so many other words that you could say, but to say anger, I think they maybe did have a row that morning. That makes sense to me. Maybe they did have a row. Maybe that's why he feels angry. I don't know. Or maybe he's angry because he feels at this point that she's just gone off and left him.
Disbelief, surrealism. Nothing feels real.
I was going to ask you that. What feels like you're living someone else's life, or how does it feel?
It just doesn't feel real. Yeah, it's in the Truman Show. Well, I feel like I'm in the Truman Show. I honestly believe I'm going to wake up.
Yeah, and that was another strange thing, the Truman Show, because the Truman Show, if you've ever seen it, he's not in a dream, the guy, Jim Carrey in the Truman Show. He's in this false environment. He's been brought up on TV, hasn't he? And he doesn't know that he's living a life that is completely staged and the whole world's eyes are on him. So I suppose in that way he could feel that he was in the Truman Show. He must have, and it literally was the world's eyes that were on him. Not this is a case, wasn't it, that went international, not just national. But it's funny that he said that, and then he said, "Oh, I feel like I'm in a dream." But in the Truman Show, Jim Carrey was not in a dream. It was his real life. It's just that he didn't know it was all artificial and all staged. So it's a funny analogy to make, really. But anyway,
At any moment. It's just, I was just talking to Louise before, Nicky's sister, and we just say the same thing every day. Just, how are we even in this? We're good people. We are good people. We try to live the best life that we can, do the right thing by everybody. You appreciate the small things. You know what I mean? It just, this is the kind of thing that you see on the telly in dramas and stuff like that.
You said that your main priority was the girls. Can I ask you how they're doing? Because you're missing the woman that you love, but they're missing their mum, and the questions they must be asking you are heartbreaking at the moment.
Yeah, it's impossible. Any parent knows, that all you want to do is make everything better for your children, isn't it?
So Nick, this is how it always looks to me. Looks like he is going to laugh. What is that? Is that? I've thought that often. Also, what is this red thing on his neck? It's looks to me like he. Right? I just don't even want to say what I think that he's got this red line around his neck. What is that? And of course, the trace of the bruise on his eye, though people were saying that was a Botox bruise, because he obviously does use Botox. Who knows? Who knows? And it was funny. Remember, he didn't appear for a week after Nicky went missing. he was AWOL, if you like. He never appeared, never was interviewed. It was a week before he was interviewed. And then he came on with that great big woolly hat on, pulled right down, and the shadow, and there was all that conjecture about him maybe having a bruise. But we don't know, do we? The police must know these things. But, you know, give collar. So he's had something round his neck, that's for sure. Definitely had something round his neck.
Whenever they're worried or they're scared or anything like that, you want to make it better for them. And I can't do that. So all I can do is be as strong as I can so that they don't see the level of like worry on my face. Reassured.
No, this is fair enough, because he's trying to keep it together. Look, if you look at his eyes now again, he looks like amused. It always looks like he's about to burst out laughing. But that could be the surreality of it. It could be just the like, oh God, what the hell's going on? But also in one of Emma's interviews, I don't know if you remember, but there's one interview where she says, we've got to get those girls back home to Paul, as if the girls weren't staying with Paul. So that was another thing that was straight. Were the girls still with Paul, or was somebody else looking after them? You know, and not just something else that we don't know. We don't know anything. Sometimes you just think, what if it's supposed to be so transparent and nothing, nothing suspicious? Why is everything secretive and guarded?
Them as much as I can with, with what we know, which isn't much, and then I try and distract them, so that their mind's not focused on it. I find that's the best way of doing it.
They need hope.
Yeah.
And you've got to hold on to that as tightly as you can every time they ask you where.
See, this was the other strange thing. So in that interview by the river, when the reporter said because when Paul, he was interviewing Paul, and it was the reporter said, oh, well, there's always hope, isn't it? And Paul was a bit snarky, like said, oh yeah, we're always going to have hope. We're always going to have hope. And since then, hope was mentioned every 30 seconds. Everything that they ever said was, oh, well, we've got this hope. Oh, we've got this hope. And to me, it almost seemed deliberate that they were saying it, because it was like, oh, he forgot to say it the first time, and now he's got to keep saying that there's hope. Because don't forget, at this interview, watching this interview now, if you didn't know that she was still missing, so she hadn't been found, so she could have been watching this interview. Don't forget, if they didn't know that she was in the river for sure. The police might presume she was in the river, but nobody had found her. He didn't know if she'd run off with another man, or if she'd just decided to take herself off because she was just adding north. He didn't know. She could have been watching this interview, but I do feel that watching it, if you didn't know that it was recorded before she was found, it feels like he doesn't think she's coming back, doesn't it? It might, let me know what you think. It feels like an interview that's done after the fact of her being found, not while she's still missing and she could be watching it. And also the other thing to remember is this interview was done before the information about Nikki's problems with menopause and alcohol, etc., came out. When this interview was made, nothing had been said about the welfare check, about her problems with alcohol, menopause. Nothing had been said, nothing. So this is, really looking at it now, it's an interview that now you know all the rest of it. It seems quite strange. Also, Willow doesn't really want to go anywhere near him, in my eyes.
Mummy is. How do
See, the dog then, when Dan Walker says, oh, about Mummy, the dog looks straight at Paul. Honestly, God, I wish that dog could speak. I bet it could tell a few stories.
How does anybody even convey that to when you're going through it as well?
Again, it's just an impossible situation. The only thing that I can do is tell them that everybody is looking for mummy. The best people like in the world are looking for mummy. Just to give them that, you know, that level of hope that they can understand that everything that can be done to find mummy is being done.
I think for the vast majority of people watching on, Nikki is a face on a poster at the moment. Tell us a bit about her. You know, what's she like?
She is.
The way he smiles there, it's like she is. I don't know. It doesn't feel natural to me. But again, because I don't know Paul, I don't know how he normally is. And this is where he goes on to say what a rock she is, and this, that, and the other. It doesn't make any mention of any of her mental health struggles.
Fun. She is loving. She is. If you're friends with her, she's the most loyal friend that you could ever have. You know, she.
Does that look like a false smile? To me, it does. You know, every time when I watch this interview, I've watched it a few times now over this year. And every time I watch it, I always try and watch it with a different view. Like, think, no, give him a chance, give him a chance. And then there's something, isn't there? There's something there that, why is he doing this interview? Why is he even doing it? And why did the police not take part in it? So that was another thing. So the police declined to take part in this interview. I know the police cocked up loads of things, and of course they did, but why did the police there was never a press conference with the police? So it just seems odd. You know, because normally when people go missing normally there's not this much fuss about somebody who goes missing, is it? You know, just people go missing day in, day out, and it isn't all over the news like this was all over the news. But if it is because they suspect something, or it says a special case, and the police appear with the family at the press conferences. So it's very odd. Well, there wasn't really a press conference, was there? This is not a press conference. This is, completely different to a press conference.
There's with Nikki, what you see is what you get. There's no hidden, nothing's hidden. You know, it's all that's her, and she is an exceptional mum, and she absolutely, you know, adores our girls.
See, again, that's not quite true. So he's saying she absolutely adores our girls, which I'm sure she did. But remember, at the welfare check, it was said that she made some comment in front of the girls saying that she didn't want to be there, and she disengaged with the girls. So, you know, something's not right, is it, along the line?
It goes above and beyond. I was saying to Emma the other day, I don't think that she's been away from them like for more than like 1 or 2 nights, you know, since you know we've had, you know, our eldest, and she's a pillar of strength, you know, to our family, and without her.
And also here in the studio, two of Britain's most.
Hang on.
That's when I thought, right, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, so this is where he says, she's a pillar of strength to our family. But then it turns out, you know, that she was having all these problems and disengaging from the girls, or so they said. So it's the contradictions again. Sorry, I
was going to put the kettle on, make a cup of tea, and I think, right, I've got an hour.
Video guests will also look at Nicola's last night.
You know, you probably know yourself, it's just mayhem, isn't it?
Yeah, carnage, yeah.
Yeah, absolute carnage. But the only difference on that morning 2 weeks ago was that there wasn't a lot.
Interview with Paul Ansell, that's Nicola's partner, and our studio to take us back to 2 weeks today, that morning of Friday, the 27th of January.
Yeah.
Was it a normal morning like any other?
Totally normal. So the only difference that morning was, usually, when you've got children, getting up on a school day, you probably know yourself, is just mayhem, isn't it?
Yeah, carnage, yeah.
Yeah, absolute carnage. So the only difference on that morning 2 weeks ago was that there wasn't a lot of rushing. I came down and a lot of stuff was already done. It was...
Yeah, so that was odd as well, wasn't it? He said the only difference that morning was, there was stuff was already done. There was no rushing about, sort of trying to insinuate that normally it was chaos. But that particular morning, it wasn't chaos, according to him. But, we only have, again, when it comes to these cases, we can't hear Nicola's side of things and what she would say. We only have Cole's version of events.
The girls were having a breakfast and everything was pretty much ready to go. I came down, Nikki went upstairs to get ready. And then, the routine is basically if Nikki's taking the girls and Willow, when I hear her come down, I'll get them in the car, get them strapped in, get Willow in the boot and all that. And Nikki comes out, give her the keys and off they go.
It's a well-oiled machine.
So, yeah, very strange that, isn't it? Because he says, if Nicky's taking... Now, why didn't we see him getting the girls in the car and putting the dog in the boot? It looked as if it was actually Nicola that was putting things in the boot, etc. So everything, again, another contradiction. And, Dan, he was a terrible interviewer in this interview. He didn't... I suppose he saying he's not there to press this guy as far as he knows this guy's girlfriend's gone missing. He probably didn't want to be too harsh, but he didn't pick up on anything. I don't really, honestly, the more I think about it, I think, what was the whole point of this interview at all? What was it about? What was the reason for it?
Normally, and sometimes you walk the dog and take the kids to school, and on that morning it was Nikki's job.
Yeah, I don't know if it's my job. Usually the roles are reversed. Yeah. So yeah, again, it was just nothing out of the ordinary. Everything was normal, Yeah,
he does a lot of this when he's saying something as well. Everything was normal. Nothing was out of the ordinary. Does a lot of that contrary thing. So as he's saying that, he's actually shaking his head. That's made me go dizzy then, going like that. But yeah.
Because my working hours, because I work for a US firm, so my hours are like 6 hours behind.
Yeah, he does a lot of nose touching as well. I don't know when he ever does any work for this firm. He was saying, I do. Well, I work for a US firm, so we're 6 hours behind. But he was going off to the gym. He'd only just got up and he'd had his hour of whatever doing, sending emails. And then he was supposedly going off to the gym. So when did he actually do any work?
UK time. So I don't usually start work till a bit later in the morning. So when Nikki takes the girls to school, I then know that I've got like an hour to myself on that morning when she takes them. So I always quite look forward to that, because I wave them off and then I go in the house and I put the kettle on, make a cup of tea, and I think, right, I've got an hour.
Bit of peace. So at what point are you thinking something's not right here? When did it feel, where's Nikki? At what point did that kick in?
So she's usually back like 9:45 average, 10 o'clock, at a push. So I'd gone up into the office at 10, thinking that she'd be back in a minute. So I logged on. I was just going through some emails and stuff, setting my day up. And it got to say 10:15. And that's when I thought, she's later than usual, but I still wasn't like particularly worried because she has come back at 10:15 sometimes. Like she might just get talking to Emma or another
friend
mom.
on a dog walk.
Yeah, or anybody. So
so it's clear that Emma is there because he actually gestures towards Emma. He says she might get talking to Emma. So this was another thing that I didn't understand about this interview, because when we see Emma being interviewed later, they do it on Zoom. And why didn't they just interview her there? She was there in the room. You know, it's all contrived. It's all, you know, staged. So because he's just gestured and said, oh, get talking to Emma. So Emma is there. Well, obviously, because she lives there anyway. It's her home.
You know, it's not often, but she has got back at about 10:15, 10:20. So again, I wasn't like massively concerned or anything. Then it got to 10:30, and that's when I thought, you know, she's, you know, quite late now, more late than usual. So I tried ringing her phone, and there was no answer. I tried ringing her on WhatsApp, and again there was no answer. I tried the mobile again, and no answer. So I couldn't get her. I started to get a bit panicky, I think.
Well, there's no difference between ringing her phone and ringing her on WhatsApp. I don't see why I differentiated between that. But didn't he send her a message saying, have you got lost? Wasn't that what he did? He sent a message saying, have you got lost?
So that's when I thought, right, I'm going to have to go down there and see if she's all right, you know, see if I can see the car or, you know, see what's going on. But I still expected that I'd just get there and just, oh, there she is, you know. So I go to the gym on a Friday lunchtime. So I quickly got my gym stuff on, because I just thought, basically, I'm going to go out.
I still think that, you know, I tell you what, this has always struck me as weird. If suddenly you realise that your partner hasn't come back, or any of your family, or even your dog, you're just like, you won't be stopping to put your gym stuff on before you went out looking for them. You know, go and take another 15 minutes or 10 minutes maybe, but 10 or 15 minutes to put your gym stuff on. Why would you even do that? You forget the gym. You don't go to the gym today. Does it even matter about going to the gym? What matters is, where's your partner? Really odd, that about the gym stuff, I think.
And come home, do a bit of work.
Carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, lunchtime, go to the gym. We're going to leave, and then the phone rang, and it was the school, and it was the receptionist at school, and she said, Mr. Ansell, it's a bit of a weird one. Hello.
Yeah, so he said, didn't he, they was just about to leave. He said, we're about to leave. And there's been a lot of controversy of that. Did he say we were about to leave, or did he say we're about to leave? You know, sometimes they talk in the plural in the north like that. So, you know, I don't know about that. But funny that, isn't it? Just as he was about to leave, after he'd put his gym stuff on, the school phoned. And then was it I thought it was Anne-Marie who phoned. Anyway, Anne-Marie Fletcher, wasn't it, that phoned him? But who knows the truth of all this? There's so many contradictions. And I'm sure she didn't say bit of a weird one. But maybe, I don't know, but it seems a fun. So he's trying to get Willow to come over to him now. Willow doesn't really want to know.
So it's a bit of a weird one, but we've found Willow and Nicky's phone on the bench, and the harness halfway down the embankment on the floor.
You tell me that dog wants to be there. It just doesn't look like it does want to be there to me. I mean, it was Nicky's dog, so maybe he might have been jealous of it. Listen, when I was with my ex-partner, the one who was like ended up stalking me, he was so jealous of my little poodle. You know, they can be jealous of any bit of attention that you give to anybody or anything else. You know, so maybe Paul didn't even like Willow. You know, just don't know, do you? Because Willow was Nicky's dog and Nicky loved him. Loved her, sorry.
So,
you're already worried at this point.
Yeah, because I'm just about to leave. So I've got my gym stuff on. I'm about to leave, thinking I'm gonna.
He's just got his hand there to stop Willow going away, but he's not. I don't think there's loads of affection there between him and Willow. But I just wanted to go to something that Rachel said. Yeah, the first thing he said to Anne-Marie Fletcher when she phoned to say, bit of a weird one, we found the dog in the harness or whatever, he just said straight away, oh, well, she's been struggling lately. That's a funny thing to say, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, oh, what? You know, like you just said, oh, what do you mean she's not there? Or what do you mean? Well, God, you know, would the first words out of your mouth be she's struggling? Well, she's been struggling lately. Why would you say that?
See her, you know, pass her, get there and find her. Then I get that call. And in an instant, it's like your whole...
Of course.
Because I knew straight away that it wasn't normal. You know what I mean? Like, because I said, well, where is she? And like, well, they can't find her. So I also know that she would never in a million years leave Willow. Like, Willow is like our third child. So I know, like, she'd never... Like, the fact that Willow's just in the field on her own, off the lead, obviously extremely concerning. So, obviously, I'm just in a mad panic then, you know, because I got hit by that weird... It's like your world just drops out because you know something's weird has happened. So I got in the car, drove down there.
Well, he says weird quite a lot, but I suppose it would have felt a bit weird. But, you know, gosh, if only you could see inside to what he's thinking. I want to believe him. Do you know, like, honest to God, I swear, I want to believe Paul, because otherwise those girls have lost a father as well as having lost a mother. You know, if it turned out that Paul had done anything to her and he got caught for it, that means those girls will have lost a father as well as a mother. So I want to believe Paul, but every time I watch this interview, I end up sort of, you know, I want to believe him, but it's difficult.
Ran down the river to where the bench is. Somebody had Willow, and obviously there was a few other dog walkers there and stuff like that. Handed me Willow, handed me Nicky's phone. I still expected, obviously, to just have a look around and, well, there.
In answer to your question, Kelly, no, he never appeals to Nicky, and he never appeals like, you know, as if anybody's got her, you know, as if she'd been kidnapped or whatever. He never makes, to me, this whole interview, it could be that it feels like he already knows she's not coming back for whatever reason.
She is, well, there she is. So, you know, we're all looking. I'm like walking off into the field that way, like looking around the corners, looking over the hedge, looking over the stile, and, you know, nothing. But I'd rung 999 on the way because I obviously knew something was wrong. So the police rang me then while I was at the bench and said, look, you've got to get home because the police are going to be coming to your house. We need somebody at your house. You get home, the police are on the way there. So I'd rung the police at like, I think about 10 to 11, and they were there. Like, they got there 25 past. So they were there, you know, really, really quick. So I then, you know, I'd gone home then, taken Willow back. Police officer would come to the house. And, you know, although I was like obviously extremely worried and concerned, I still expected at any second to just go, oh, we found her, you know, we've found her here or whatever. And that, yeah, I mean, that never happened. Like, that was just the day then just, you know, just spiraled, and end of the day came and no answers. Here we are, you know, 2 weeks later.
We'll hear more from Paul Ansell in a moment. That was his recollection of the day Nicola went missing. Let's look in a bit more detail about what we know about that Friday. We're going to start the clock at 8:26 on January the 27th. Nicola was captured by her Ring doorbell camera. Here she is on the driveway of her home in Inskip. You can clearly see she's dressed in that heavy outdoor clothing, including the knee-length quilted coat with the hood. Her hair is tied up in a ponytail, and in the boot of the car there...
Sorry, I just went to get another. I've drunk nearly a carton of cranberry juice. I think that's the problem with cranberry juice. I keep drinking it. So what was I going to say? So they're going through this sort of timeline thing. That's the Willow's there, isn't that Willow? Is it in the car there?
There is Willow the dog. It was moments after that she left her home with her 2 young daughters and Willow. She did the normal school run, just over 10 minutes. And at 8:40, she dropped off the children in St Michael's on Wire. And at that point, she had a brief conversation with another parent. 3 minutes later, and follow the white line as Nicola walks along the path by the River Wire towards a bench and into the lower field. At roughly 8:47, a dog walker, someone who knows Nicola, saw her walking around that lower field with Willow. The 2 dogs.
I still think that people that think they saw Nicola on the field in the distance, it could have been anyone. Well, not anyone, but it could have been somebody who looked like Nicola. So I'm still not convinced of that. The timeline drives me mad. I don't know how this timeline fits in with the official timeline or the inquest timeline or the timelines that people keep finding extra minutes here. And the timeline is an absolute nightmare. And something Kelly's one of the new members, said there, he never cried, did he, Paul? He never, ever cried. The only time he cried at the inquest, apparently. And he had to go out and... calm himself down, etc. But then, because it's so difficult because I don't know him, so everybody shows emotion in different ways. But
Had a bit of fun with each other before the witness left that field via the river path. The time is now 8:53, and Nicola sends an email to her boss. A few minutes later, she sent a message to a friend. At 9:01, she logs on to that Teams call. And then approximately at 9:10, a witness, somebody again who knows Nicola, saw her this time in the upper field again.
actually, yeah, I have got a video of him crying he's with Ed, Emma's husband, Ed White, and he was crying, or looked as if he was crying. But I think that was on the first day. I mean, I don't know.
Again with Willow the dog. By 9:20, a trace of telephone records has shown that her phone was back in that area around the bench. And at 9:30, the team call ends, but Nicola stays logged on. 9:33, Nicola's mobile phone and Willow were found by that bench near the river by another dog walker. It wasn't then until 10:45 that Nicola's daughter's primary school was notified. They contacted Paul Ansell. He told us about that in the interview. And it was just before 11 o'clock, almost 2 hours after the last confirmed sighting of Nicola, that the police are then called. We also know now that there are some blind spots in the park not covered by CCTV. And as Peter Lane explained to us earlier, police have extended the search along the river, further downstream towards the estuary and out towards Morecambe Bay. The police still say they have an open mind about the case, but there's nothing to suggest anything untoward or third-party involvement. This is what they said earlier this week.
We remain fully open to any information that is credible and factual to try and trace Nicola and bring answers for her family. But it does remain our belief that Nicola sadly fell into the river and that this is a missing person inquiry. We would ask that people in the wider community, particularly on social media and online, do not speculate as to what may have happened to Nicola. This is particularly hurtful to her family, to her children, to her partner Paul, her parents, her sister, and her friends.
So that was a police speaking a little earlier this week. Let's introduce you to our guest this evening for the first time, Peter Faulding. Good evening to you. He's the underwater specialist who the family asked to search.
I just want to say about that silly Sally, shilly-shallying, right? You know, she was asking everyone not to. I think we know that she wasn't very good, basically. She was asking everybody not to speculate, but the police themselves were speculating. There's so many, I mean, I've been to that place, and there are so many ways that you can get onto that field. Anybody could have snuck around the back, or Nicola could have, you know, there's no way that it was all covered by CCTV. So why they decided that because on the CCTV that they had, nobody was seen, or Nicola wasn't seen going out of that area, I don't know, because there were loads of different ways you could have snuck out of there. Also, just before we look at what Peter's got to say and everybody else, I just want to show you the video I have of Paul crying. So let's see if I can see. Actually, I can't show that at the moment. I've got to blur some things out of it. Never mind, we'll carry on with what we're looking at.
For Nicola, great to have you on the programme. Also here, former Met Police Chief Superintendent Parm Sandhu is with us tonight, and Mark Williams-Thomas, former detective turned investigative journalist. I know you've been listening with great care and attention to what Paul has had to say this evening, but Mark, specifically on the evidence and that line of evidence we've just...
See, another thing that I just want to say here is, why is Peter on this panel, and why is Mark Williams-Thomas there? You know, really, because the police should be there. Now, Mark Williams-Thomas does say that in this interview, the police should be there. So instead, we've got two ex-police people talking about it. We've got Peter talking about it, who I don't know if by then the family had... I suppose because he's on this programme, surely it must have been approved by Paul for Peter to speak. I don't know, because of course at some point Paul stopped speaking to Peter. The family stopped speaking to Peter. So where does this fit in? This must have been just after he'd been there, isn't it? So if Nicola had been missing 2 weeks, this will have been just after Peter was there. So let's see.
Just seen in that timeline, the significance of the phone, because this has been crucial to the case. So many questions about it. Why was it still logged into that Teams call when it was still on the bench? How important has that been, and will that continue to be for the case?
The phone is really important. What I'm struggling with is this whole strategy that the police have. Why are they not here? We last heard from them 2 days ago. They haven't responded to you to come on the show. This is now a massive, massive investigation in terms of the public profile. People are following this. It's not about giving daily updates in everything you're doing, but it's about filling the void. She talks in terms of people, the public, having guesses. Come out and talk to the public every day through the media and explain what's going on. We shouldn't be sat here. The police should be sat here working with you in a Crime Watch style programme to be able to appeal for information. And that mobile phone is crucial, but we mustn't be detracted from the wider evidence. That mobile phone has probably played out now. We know that it was on the bench. They've secured as much evidence as they can from that mobile phone through the technology that's now available. What they now need to do is what I would refer to feet on the ground. They now need to start looking at the wider area, not just focused in relation to the river. We know their hypothesis is the river, but actually there are 3 aspects here, which is either river, she walks off, or someone takes her. Those are your 3 hypotheses, not just the water. And it's all well and good to say, do you know what, actually, we'll take any information. What they should have said from a media strategy is that we have a number of working hypotheses and we're focused on this. I mean, certainly what they need to do is to be very broad. The senior command course tells you very clearly, don't be fixated on one element, because you'll look to provide
in
that
fairness, they have said...
Just being a bit of a devil's advocate for the police, because I can see you saying, oh, well, sometimes, from what the police have said in other cases that I've seen, so not just this case, The police cannot say if there was a reason why they didn't attend this, come onto this programme. It's easy for Mark Williams-Thomas, who's no longer in the police, to say what the police should do, what they should have done, what we would have done years ago, 20 years ago when I was in the police. He's always going on about what the police do wrong. But he doesn't know the ins and outs of the investigation. Nobody knows that. So the police cannot say anything. They can't go on there and say, Mark Williams-Thomas is a prat or whatever. They just can't. They can't comment. So in their defence, that's all I say. Now, from previous other cases that I've seen, quite often when the police don't get involved and just let someone run off their mouth, sometimes it's because they suspect that they're involved in things in some way and they hope that they'll make a mistake. Having said that, in this case, they did say in the College of Policing review, they did say that the family liaison officers had not dealt properly with, Paul, if you like, or any of the family, and had not guided them properly in what they should and shouldn't say to the media. So they did admit that failing. So just to be a devil's advocate for them.
Today, they've got an open mind in response to what Paul has said, in response to that interview today. What about the CCTV side of this, Palm? Because again, that was a black spot, but surely that's been searched from start to finish.
Well, over the last 2 weeks, the police officers will have done, and I know that they will have done this, they will have searched all of the CCTV that was available to them. They'll have also asked for dash cam videos.
I've noticed that Palm's, she's not so critical of the police. Mark Williams-Thomas, every time he opens his mouth these days, it's a criticism of the police. He knows everything. He's right with everything he does, even though he thinks that Oscar Pistorius was innocent. And it's all police bashing constantly. Whereas you notice with Palm, she talks about things and she'll say if she thinks there had been any failings or whatever, but she's not police bashing. She's more level about it. I think Mark Williams-Thomas is just literally, it's all about his own ego. And you don't find that with Palm. She's a much more rational, level sort of voice in it all that gives, to me, I like to listen to her, and because she's got her experience of the police, etc. But she's not this total, oh, the police are crap and I'm brilliant like Mark Williams-Thomas is.
Ring doorbells, anything like that. But what we've got to remember is that there were something like 700 vehicles that passed through the village on that morning. So they've made an appeal to those 700 drivers to say, can you check your dash cam? Has anybody got any mobile phone camera footage that we can use? So although they've focused on one particular hypothesis, they will still have that open mind, and they will still be looking at other avenues that they could exhaust and look at.
Yeah, she's so much more supportive and more balanced, isn't she, in her views? Mark Williams-Thomas is just awful, I think.
Before they make any final decisions, and that's what's supposed to happen as a senior investigating officer, and especially on a missing persons case. I'm absolutely convinced that would have been done and will be carrying on, because as far as we know, there's about a team of 40 or 50 officers that are dedicated to this investigation, and they've had thousands of pieces of information from the public as well as leads that they can actually follow up.
And a lot of that information, what they've been looking at is in the river. How does that complicate the evidence gathering?
Well, underwater search, Dan, is always difficult. But looking for bodies actually is quite straightforward. We as divers recover about 10 victims a year and plus suicide victims. It's just follow a line. You run along the bottom with a line, feeling around until we unfortunately touch the person. Ours is speeded up with high frequency side scan sonar, so we can scan a large lake in a day, no problem, and locate the victim.
Okay, and just briefly, 170,000 people go missing every single year, Mark. Why do you think there's so much focus on this case?
Yeah, I mean, thousands go missing, overwhelmingly they return. They return very quickly, but there are some that obviously that don't. I've been contacted this week by people who are saying to me, will you help me with my family? Why are these cases not being featured? What we've got to be very clear of is there are certain cases which attract more media attention. Ethnicity, sexuality of the individual, male, female, and also their upbringing. You know, if they're middle class. There are certain people who fulfill the criteria and they get much more publicity. Don't forget, it's the public that will solve this. The police will pull the jigsaw puzzle together, but it is.
The public will solve it, but then all he does now on his Twitter, because he thinks he's banned me on Twitter, but of course I have my ways to look at his Twitter or X or whatever. He's always slagging off the social media as if he's not social media. I mean, it's so funny because he is social media now. He is a YouTuber or a social media commentator. He's not a policeman. He had a lot of experience in the police 20 years ago or whatever. You know, he tries to make out as if it's okay for him to do all this, but nobody else can, you know, because they're just, you know, the TikTok ghouls or whatever they're obsessed with. But not him. Oh, no, he's there at every high-profile crime. He turns up like a bad smell, doesn't he? Every single one.
The public will solve it.
Once again, here are the numbers for you to call if you think you can help. We have invited Lancashire Police on the programme tonight. They declined that invitation, but they have said you can call 101 and say you believe you have information about the Nicola Bulley investigation. For immediate sightings, please call 999. We're going to take a break for you now. In a few minutes, you'll hear Paul Ansell again, that's Nicola's partner, tell us why he is convinced the answer to this terrible story does not lie in the river. Welcome back. Nicola Bulley and Paul Ansell have been together for 12 years and they have 2 young daughters. He simply cannot fathom how or why she went missing. His life is currently in limbo, but he remains both desperate and determined to find the truth. What do you think might have happened?
We've always tried to keep all options open because we don't want to shut down any avenue. We've always been very careful that we don't want to say, oh, we think it's that, and then push that when it might not be. The most obvious thing, of course, has always been the river. It's always been my gut instinct and her sisters and family that that isn't the case. Extensive.
That's strange, isn't it? Saying it's been our gut instinct that isn't the case. But when it came to the inquest, he changed that completely because he said, you know, he went along with this theory that she'd fallen in the water. So, yeah, he has changed his story.
Searching, you know, is probably well aware of has gone on in that river. I mean, they were in there. You know, I mean, I have to categorically say I cannot fault the police in any of this. They have been incredible, and the relationship that we have working on this is very, very strong. It's very good. Yeah,
so he's very praiseworthy of the police, Paul. You know, he's praising the police. Our relationship with the police is really good. And just when I was just funnily enough, Chumbers just said there, I do have the Dot and Ernie interview, but I'm not going to play it tonight. But over these next few days, apart from tomorrow, which will be the Burns night, from Friday onwards, we will be looking at a lot of things from the Nicola Bulley case, just to remind us. I personally thought that Ernie looked very genuinely upset, and I thought Dot looked like she was worried about Ernie. You know, she was worried that he was gonna collapse, you know, that he was gonna which he did. He got upset and he started crying. But we will look at that interview. We'll look at that interview because there's a few things that I did think about it at the time. I did feel that Ernie made was at pains to say that we are a close family. We are, you know, and it may, when somebody, I know it sounds funny, but sometimes when people insist on saying how close they are, sometimes that means the opposite. You know, sometimes people over sort of emphasising something can mean the opposite. But we'll look at that. We will look at that another day, definitely over the weekend sometime.
So that this isn't any criticism of them at all. I want to make that clear. But the fact that they were in the divers and underwater rescue team and all that were in that river on the day, and thankfully found absolutely nothing in the part where you would.
I think if Nicola would have been in that river, they would have found her that very first day. That's what I think.
I guess I have to presume is her last known location. If you take all those things into account, the unlikeliness of it, you would have to sort of say that really the river isn't what happened. And so we always felt that the mobile phone and the harness and everything, it could possibly be a decoy. Again, we don't have evidence.
No, but these are things that you naturally.
So this is where he says, in this interview, he said that they thought they could be a decoy. Of course, Peter Folding said that as well. Whereas at the inquest, oh no, it wasn't a decoy. They always took the harness off. According to him at the inquest, they always took the harness off because Willow used to get stuff stuck in the harness when she went in the bushes, etc. There weren't really that many bushes there. Do you know, like Willow, she had the whole field to run around. So I've got so many pictures of Willow with the harness on. I do not believe for a minute that the harness was taken off. I just don't. I think it probably was a decoy. I think this was when he was correct, saying it was a decoy. I think it's exactly what the harness was. So when it came to the inquest, really, at the end of the day, I think what they were at pains to do, they didn't want to be brutal. They did not want a suicide verdict for probably many reasons. Most families don't want that verdict and will push for a different sort of verdict. And an accidental verdict, they wanted it that much. They actually had a solicitor there, which is very unusual at an inquest. And the solicitor virtually directed the coroner to make it an accidental death verdict. Now, he's right what he says there. There's no evidence. There's no evidence of anything. This has been the no evidence case, isn't it? There's no evidence of accidental death either. There's no evidence of suicide. There's no evidence of foul play. There is no evidence. And so he's right when he says that. But I don't believe, why he changed his story about the harness. We can only imagine.
You would think about, because the team's call was still active at the time, wasn't it? And the Willow's harness is on the floor, and I'm sure these are things that constantly you're thinking about.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I mean, like, the only thing we're bothered about is finding her. Like, there's nothing else matters. That's the only thing that we're bothered about is just finding her. So, it's of course you're going to be thinking these things, and so. The more searching of the river that went on, the more confident we were that it wasn't the river. Especially things like.
I just want to say, because according to the inquest, so I'm only saying what it said at the inquest, Anne-Marie Fletcher said that Willow, somebody was, I think it was Desi saying about her lead being on the floor. Her lead was not on the floor. Her lead was an extendable lead and it was attached to her collar. Because when Anne-Marie tried to take Willow away, she noticed Willow wouldn't go at first. And then she noticed that her extendable lead, where it's like with an extendable lead, when you let go of it, it goes, contracts. And apparently, according to Anne-Marie, the extendable lead was attached to Willow's collar. So the lead was not on the ground, it was the harness only, according to Anne-Marie.
Again, it's not nice talking about it, but at the same time, we've taken hope from it. The fact that no item of clothing or anything has been found anywhere where you would have thought something, would have...
Something might have been found, yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely nothing. So...
there's quite a bit of editing there. So it'd be interesting to see when the next one comes out on the 2nd of February that's supposed to contain bits that were edited out of. It'd be interesting to see which bits are put in, because it's quite often that it's edited. There was a bit of editing there when he's talking about why clothing has not been found. He does seem to look far away, like as if he's thinking about things, rather than just saying, people when they're telling the truth. Do you mind? People when they're telling the truth, normally, they don't have to think about things and go into a dreamy state. They just say it.
For me, personally, and again, this is just my opinion, I'm 100% convinced it's not the river. That's my opinion.
And I suppose the question after that is, what then? And and the difficulty is you allowing your mind to think where she might be and what's happened to her, which is horrible as well, I imagine.
Yeah, it's horrendous, because people don't just vanish into thin air. It's absolutely impossible. So something has happened. Something has happened. Find out what it is. Find out what it is. There has to be a way to find out what happened. There has to be. You cannot walk your dog down a river and just vanish into thin air. Something happened that day. Something. Find out what it is. And my plea now is, personally, I want every house, every garage, every outbuilding, the land scrutinised. I want it all searched. I want it all scrutinised. Every piece of it. And I'm not going to. You're not going to appease me with anything else. That is what I want to happen, because for something to have happened there, it's not many. You would only know that area by local people. It's a local area. We've walked down there for years, and I mean years. You see the same faces every single day, and on the very odd occasion when you see somebody that you don't know, they stand out like a sore thumb.
And I think that's an important point to make, because there might be some people watching this thinking, why are you doing this? Why are you talking to us? And the reason you're doing that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is because you feel that somebody out there knows something, and that's the appeal that you're trying to make. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm just pleading with them, just please, anything, no matter how tiny, just please, just come forward with it.
So didn't Peter Folding say as well that Paul had got upset and demanded that everything should be searched? He wanted things searching, and the police said they needed search warrants. And Peter said in that question and answer session with Luke, oh, you don't need a search warrant, you just go and knock on the door and ask if you can go in, which is fair enough, I suppose. He knows from all the experience he's got. But anyway, so that was another bone of contention, wasn't it? Paul was saying search all these outbuildings, etc. But then the police said that they did search them. So it's another contradiction.
Please, because that could be the key to finding her. And as a family, we're not bothered about anything else. Like, there's nothing else. The only thing is we just have to find her.
That's pretty clear, isn't it? And that's why Paul wanted to give us that interview. You heard him there say he's 100% certain Nicola is not in the river. Let's bring in Peter Faulding, who has been searching that river for the family. Do you share that
Yeah, let's bring in Peter Faulding.
conclusion? Do you think the body's not in there?
Well, we come in 10 days after, Dan. I wasn't there on the initial search. It was searched thoroughly by police divers on the day. We've since looked at it, and down the bottom of the bank, the water's about that deep onto rocks. On the day, it was 12 inches higher, so it was about 2 foot. If Nicola had slid down the bank, she would have landed on stones, and she could have literally stood up. It's about 3.5 meters in the middle, but that's my theory. This is a really odd one.
Okay, because I'm sure conditions make a difference, don't they? So you talked a bit about the depth there, but the speed of the flow, all those sort of things can have a massive impact on something.
Absolutely. It would take a lot of flood water to move a body fast down the river on the day. Let's face it, that day we normally find people within about an hour, and they haven't gone far when they first drowned. To get right the way around the corner past obstacles, that would take some hell of a movement of water. And on the day, the family said the water was hardly moving. I threw a stick in yesterday, and it stayed there for 20 minutes.
We've got some sonar images which we're going to show you in a moment. You sent these through to us. When we see those, can you explain the sorts of things that you're looking for when you're searching at the bottom of a riverbed? Let's have a look at those pictures if we can.
So what we're seeing there is rocks on the bottom. A body would stand out. It would look like a body. That's nice. You can see sticks there laying on the bottom. You can see rocks. And that's the width of the river. And then we go up the other side, so we catch that centre line, so we cross lap. If we find something, we measure it. But the body, to me, on most my searches, does look like a body. You can see it quite clear, measure it. And that's how good it is. I mean, we can scan out to 30 metres either side to search a river.
And the police are now looking a lot further down the river, as Peter Lane was explaining, out towards Morecambe Bay.
That's particularly difficult because it's fully tidal, and the water comes in every 6 hours, it goes out. So it's moving constantly. So the chance of a body being in that area in the tidal part, I mean, sometimes it'll wash in. We had a sheep in Kent what washed in and stayed there for 2 weeks.
Palm, how does it affect a major investigation like this when you've got a difference of opinion about a major part of it like this, where Peter and Paul are saying Nicola's not in the river, but the police have centred their investigation on that for most of the 2 weeks?
This is a really complex case, and it is very difficult for police to manage it because they have no evidence. There's no evidence to say that she is in the water, but there's no evidence to say that she's left the area either. So it is being treated as a...
She's so calm, and listen to her talking. It's so she really is the voice of reason, I think.
Missing person inquiry, which means that all scenarios should be open and all of them should still be examined and looked at. So it is difficult, but I think that one of the most important parts of this one is to keep the family and the community on side and on point to help with that inquiry, because where there is no evidence, where there is no CCTV or anything else to go on, it is, as we've said before, it is the public who are going to help to solve this crime, if it is a crime.
Yeah, I know Paul is speaking to the liaison officers every single day, and he's getting regularly briefed by the police as well.
Yeah, she said it is the public who's going to say solve this crime, if it is a crime. They thought it was a crime. I don't care what they say. They thought, everyone who thought it was a crime, there was some sort of crime. There's more to it. There is so much more to this, and that is why people are still talking about it a year later. What other case are we still talking about a year later? I've covered other cases. I've covered loads of other cases. What other cases are we still talking about a year later, after an inquest, after a police review, after Peter Faulding, coming out with some ridiculous story? There's reasons for it that we're still talking about it, because it should be resolved. Most other cases by now, they would have just been resolved and people would have just accepted everything. But this case is different. And quite often people refer to it accidentally as a crime, don't they? Or a crime scene, Or remember that video that I showed of that journalist calling it the awful murder of Nicola Bulley? You know, people think of it as a crime. So it probably was a crime.
It is extraordinary, though, isn't it? In a case like this, to be 2 weeks into this investigation with no single piece of evidence that's come to light in those.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Fortnight.
2 weeks today. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't do road checks this morning. You know, people are creatures of habit. So exactly the same time, 2 weeks later, I'd have done it a week later. You had to run a road checks and just seen who's coming. You'll be surprised the amount of people who still won't know about this case. They may live in the community, they don't follow the news in a normal fashion, so they might not know about it. You know, just going back to that point of the police, you know, why have they given a 101 telephone number? Do you know how difficult it is to get through on 101 and the delay? Let's give a specific number. And I'd urge, you know, the chief constable or somebody, just get a hold of this. Start to realise actually you need the public on side. You need to start giving clear messages. You know, sometimes the information being given by Superintendent Riley has been confusing. We need to go back to the beginning and start again.
OK, we're going to take a break for you now. In a moment, we'll speak to one of Nicola's best friends who's watching the programme tonight. And Paul will tell us why he refuses to give up on hope. Don't go away.
There goes that hope again. So we're going to watch Emma now being interviewed in the same place that Paul was interviewed, but they're going to do it as if it's on a Zoom call. Why is that? Contrived, everything contrived.
Welcome back. Now, we know it's been a terrible 2 weeks for everyone in St Michael's on Wye, and yet one of the most heartwarming aspects of this story is the way the entire community have rallied round. Nicola's friends, of course, but also people who don't even know her, who've been shocked and saddened and simply want to help. Let's speak now to Emma White, who is one of Nicola's best friends, who's speaking to us tonight from her home in Lancashire. Emma, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us this evening. Can I ask you, what have the past 2 weeks been like for you?
You can't put into words the roller coaster we've been on the past 2 weeks. It's the heartache, the torture, the disbelief, washed down with this immense hope. And then we've got this drive and focus to bring Nikki home. And then we've had to put emotions aside, being that support for Paul and the girls and my family, and just putting that brave face on, telling them everything's all right, but equally being honest with them, knowing that Nikki is missing and the girl's mum is missing. No 2 days has been the same, no 2 hours been the same, and just waiting for that good news and keeping that hope at the forefront of our minds.
We've heard a lot from Paul tonight, Nikki's partner, and he's told us a lot about the Nicola that he loves. What about the Nicola that you know so well?
Yeah, I think just from seeing her face out there, she's touched the nation, hasn't she? And everything that you see and a little bit more is what
Nightingale. Now, her again, she's doing this first. Everything you see, the way she talks, I don't know, it's just like so sugary, sweet. Like, nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like that. Well, obviously Emma does, but anyway, there you go.
She is inside. She's beautiful, she's caring, she's thoughtful, she's kind, she's funny, she's loving, the most loyal friend. She's the stuff that dreams are made of, and
she's the stuff that dreams are made. I mean, you know, I'm sorry, but it's too over the top, isn't it? It's too over the top. Wait and see what she says next.
We've laughed, we've cried, everyone in between, and then you take Nikki's lovely, amazing qualities. You add Paul's in there, and then we've got these two little human beings that we have to do everything to bring Nikki home and bring their mummy home for them.
I know that you and many other people have put everything on hold over the past fortnight, helping the family. And
nobody cried, really. You know, like Emma never cried. Maybe it's just because I'm such an emotional person. I would have been crying like, you know, people probably would have been watching me and saying, "No, God, she's crying too much. She's over the top." I don't know, but Emma was funny, you know, though it did say, to be fair to Emma, in the College of Policing review, it did say she was left more or less to be the press officer. They did admit that. You know, she was left to do all these interviews when really that hadn't been dealt with properly by the police. So we've got to give Emma a break, I suppose.
And helping the police as well. The community response has been incredible. I was up in St Michael's on Wye today. There's people everywhere on street corners holding up posters of Nikki everywhere. Has that struck you? I know you're a close-knit community anyway.
Yeah, we are a close-knit community, but that community near and far has united. Oh, it's been fundamental in raising the profile of Nikki's disappearance, generating those lines of inquiry. What I cannot stress enough is please keep those lines of inquiry, please keep them factual. Don't clog that 101 line that we really need to have that factual information come through to give the police lines of inquiry. Even the locals, with all the disruption they've had on the village, they've been so supportive. We've all got the end goal to bring Nikki home. Then we've got Peter and the SGI group offering their time and expertise to cement the great work that the police have done. And then the acts of kindness from everybody is just unimaginable. And I'd personally like to thank every single one of you, family, friends, strangers. It's the simple act of kindness that have made the biggest difference. And the strength that it's given me.
This wasn't really Emma's job to do, was it? Why, apart from, so it's like the police left her to it. Louise left her to it, really. You know, if that was my sister, I would be there making these statements. You know, it's strange that everything was left to Emma. I know Emma's an organizer, and maybe this, you know, maybe they needed an Emma to get everything organized. But it's like everything was Emma. You know, 17 interviews she did, whereas Paul himself only did 2. You know, and Dot, Ernie and Louise only did 1. So why was Emma, even the police didn't do as many as Emma.
To then be able to be, I heard in Paul's interview, that pillar of support, with people supporting me. We've been able to support Paul and the girls, and I cannot thank everybody enough. And we need to bring Paul and the girls there, rock home, to bring Nikki home.
Well, Emma, I know you do an incredible job, and it's very much appreciated by Paul and many others there in the village. Thank you for your time tonight. Do take care of yourself. Really appreciate you speaking to us live on the programme. And let's bring in our studio guests who are listening into what Emma has to say there. And Palm, I know you have personal experience, don't you, of how important a local community can be in a case like this.
I think that's one of the most important parts of this investigation, because it is the local community who may have the answers to solving this issue. They may have a small bit of information that if they share it, that might help. But even the people who are turning up to assist, who are walking the riverbank, they are part of that community and they are trying to help. And in addition to that, the police have done an incredible job here because of the amount of CCTV, the amount of cars that have gone through that area, the amount of evidence that or intelligence they've been given that they're still chasing up. So, you know, everybody's working really hard. It's just that little extra that's needed now.
The other element, which we haven't really touched on, which Paul does mention in the final part of our interview to come, is that sort of social media sleuths side of this, which can confuse an investigation, and it's people looking.
Oh, here we go. This is where we get the blame for everything.
For their own little moment in the spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, all major investigations, particularly nowadays when they attract huge media attention, means that a lot of information is incoming. And what the police have to do is obviously sift every piece of that information. They have a triage process to be able to determine those that require urgent action. And that slows down the whole process. I've been very critical of the police in certain ways, but it is important to say that behind the scenes, they are doing a very good job. They're analysing the information. I think what's good they've got wrong is their communication process has let them down massively. But there are people out there, and let's be really clear to those individuals, is that it doesn't help in any way to start speculating about individuals, whether or not they're involved. You know, we've heard very clearly from Paul tonight.
God, the brass neck of this man. So it doesn't do any good speculating. He does nothing but speculate. He did loads of videos about the Nicola Bulley case. These are all speculation, and he thinks only he can speculate.
You've spoken to him. He's talking from the heart. He's not involved.
Okay. Time for another break. When we come back in the studio, in the final part of our interview.
So he's the guy. So let's listen. So Mark Williams Thomas says Paul's not involved. Now, maybe he's the guy who thinks that Oscar Pistorius is innocent and thinks that the McCanns are innocent as well, that the McCanns had nothing to do with the disappearance of Madeleine. So, you know, Mark, sorry, but I don't think I really want, you know, really take your opinion as being, you know, worth sort of listening to, because if you were right about other cases, maybe I would think that. You spoke up against Jimmy Savile once he was dead. You know, what has he ever done with anybody who's actually alive? He waits till people are dead and then starts talking about him. Oh, and he was supporting Michelle Mone as well. So I can't take what Mark Williams-Thomas has to say as truth, I'm afraid.
With Paul, he'll explain how Nicola is inspiring him to never give up on the hope that they can be a family once again. We'll see you in a moment. Welcome back to the final part of this special programme. Nicola Bulley's partner told me earlier today that hope is still strong, both within him and his family. He remains adamant tonight that Nicola would never give up on them. So how can they give up on her? You've told us a bit about who Nikki is. Was she ever the sort of person who might go away for a night or leave for a few days? You know what I mean?
It's about as far out of character as you could get. You know, I truly mean that. Like, even as a couple, on the odd occasion, if we ever do have a night away from the girls, because the girls are our world. Like, we go out for meals, the girls come with us. Our whole
family.
Yeah, everything that we do is, the girls are in it. They're involved in it, and that feels right. You know, that's how we love it. We love our little family. We love our world.
And your gorgeous dog Willow's been spending a bit of time with us as well. And it's also that thing that Willow may well have seen.
I know.
To Nikki.
I know, and that's.
There was an edit there, and I just wonder if the edits that we're going to see, these missing. I wonder if he started crying because he looked like maybe he had been crying there. They might have done better if they would have left that in, and people might have been more sympathetic towards him. But I just wonder there if when we see this next documentary on the 2nd of February, if some of the clips that they're going to show is maybe he did break down during the interview, but they cut it out. But they probably should have left it in because he would have got more sympathy, I think.
Another layer of frustration and hell to it. You know, it's a hellish situation with the layer of hell that not knowing what's happened yet. And then also having Willow, who probably does know what happened, but she can't tell us, can she? And she's a very sensitive dog. I did take her back there first thing on the Saturday.
So the next day?
The next day, yeah, I took her back there first
thing. How
thing.
did she react to that then?
Well, I was praying and hoping that once we got to the gate, that she would do something different, you know, just to
take you somewhere.
Yeah, just give some sign of some kind. But she, bless her, she just went through the gate like any other normal day and ran into the field and looked at me excited that she was there for a walk. I was saying to her, "Where's mummy? Where's mummy?" You know, and she was just looking at me like, you know, let's go for a walk.
There's been a lot of publicity around Nikki's disappearance, isn't there? And I suppose you are one of those stories that is very much talked about on social media at the moment. I don't know whether you've read the stories, the accusations, all the theories that are out there. Does that upset you, or are you happy that people are talking about and trying to find a solution?
It would be upsetting, of course, if I let myself read it all. Don't get me wrong, I have seen some stuff. Most people have been amazing.
Yeah.
You know, you're always going to get that 2% of people that, for whatever reason, you know, say and do not very nice things. But I don't want to give any energy to that. Like, my energy is just finding Nikki. I read one that said the police need to look at the partner, and I'm sort of like, well, yeah, that's the first thing that they do. Like, of course it is.
Yeah.
You know, like, I knew that would happen. You know, on the first day.
I knew that would happen on the first day, but you know, then she was just missing. She could have been anywhere. But what was I going to say then? Yeah, because that's something else. We don't know why he was ruled out. You know, it seems like, you know, if he was ruled out, so absolutely, that's never been, you know, said why he was ruled out. Because anyway, I do think there's just so much still we don't know about this case. Maybe it'll come out one day.
I suppose you expect that, don't you? Yeah.
I expected that. I said to them, do it and get that out of the way, and then focus on
finding her.
On finding her and focus on the rest of it. So that's exactly what we did. You know, it was.
The other thing is, I just want to say, like, Paul is big into social media, you know, so he says, oh, he's seen some things. I bet he's watched more or less everything, because he is, we know that his social media presence, he was looking at Instagram models and this, that, and the other while it was all going on. It was on his LinkedIn, and then he said he'd been hacked, but I think really he hadn't been hacked. They were, you know, and there's nothing wrong, you know, men like looking at pictures of women, I suppose, but they're girls, aren't they? Young girls. That wouldn't have been very nice for Nikki to find out about that and, you know, compare herself. You know, if you found out that your partner was looking at all those things, it just won't be very nice, especially when you're going through the menopause or going through some bad times. But what I'm trying to say is he's social media savvy. You know, he's not on social media all the time, probably. And then, of course, he did send the CCTV to a true crime channel. So, you know, that did it for me as well. It was like, why? Why would you send CCTV? Why go to a YouTube channel to do that? You know, it's like, do it through the police, not through a YouTube channel.
That was done, ruled out, obviously, and then move on. So, you know, whatever, you know, people want to say, and you know, if that's what they want to think, that's their business. It's not mine.
But I know you've also been struck by the amazing response locally, and you know, just being here for today, everybody's talking about it. Everyone's asking how you are, and the local community, whether they're standing out on the street corner or putting posters up or just asking questions, they are doing an amazing job. Yeah,
it's absolutely incredible. Like it's heartwarming. It's given us an immense amount of strength, and it's kept that hope so high that we can't thank them enough.
How are you keeping it? Is that the kids? Is that your natural positivity?
It's all of those things. Of course it's the children, of course. But I am naturally a positive person, and I believe that you get out of life what you put into life. And that's how we are as a family. And so what we're going through now is like unprecedented hell, but that hope and that positivity in me is stronger than ever, and I'm never ever going to let go. Nikki would never give up on us ever. She wouldn't give up on anybody, and we're not going to ever give up on her. Like, we're going to find her.
We were talking earlier, and you were saying that one of the plans you had was to get married during the pandemic, but you sort of, like many people, you had to abandon those plans. Is that something that you think, you know, when she's back, this is what we're doing?
Yeah, I'm far too laid back sometimes for my own good, but also my attitude is, you know, we'll get around to it. It'll be fine. And so we have obviously spoken about, you know, marriage many times before, and then we had the children. When your children are, you know, obviously, you know, little, it's, you know, all time consuming. And then as they were growing up, we always said when they're a bit older, you know, be a nice time to do it, and they can be a part of it. They can, you know, be the bridesmaids and everything. So that was always the plan. And so, you know, it's just now. You know, it's something that we would have obviously, you know, spoken about it and moved forward with again, but and still will.
Yeah, I think he made a bit of a mistake there, didn't he? Because he said, "Oh, we would have talked about it," and then went, "And we still will." You know, I think I do think this whole interview, maybe, you know, maybe not for nefarious reasons. Maybe he did think that she had deleted herself. Because bear in mind, as he was giving this interview, he knew about her struggles, or the struggles he said she had with mental health and menopause and drinking, etc., that came out later. We didn't know about that then, but he knew about it. So he may have been thinking that she had deleted herself, you know. So he certainly isn't talking, in my eyes, he's not talking about her as if he feels that she'll come back. He never once turns to the camera and says, "Nikki, whatever's the matter, you know, we can work it out. Please come home. We miss you." You know, that's the sort of thing you'd be saying to your partner who's disappeared. And as far as you know, maybe they had these mental health issues, but you'd be thinking maybe they've run off, or, you know, maybe you would be making an appeal to your partner, wouldn't you?
Far too laid back sometimes for my own good, but also my attitude is, you know, we'll get around to it. It'll be fine. And so we have obviously spoken about, you know, marriage many times before, and then we had the children. When your children are, you know, obviously, you know, little, it's, you know, all time consuming. And then as they were growing up, we always said when they're a bit older, you know, be a nice time to do it, and they can be a part of it. They can, you know, be the bridesmaids and everything. So that was always the plan. And so, you know, it's just now. You know, it's something that we would have obviously, you know, spoken about it and moved forward with again, but and still will.
There is a chance, isn't there, that
No, she's not.
somehow she might be out there even watching this. If you could say something to her, what would you say to Nikki now?
Just how much I love her, how much us as a family love her and need her, how well thought of, how much her friends love her, and need her back.
He's talking in the third person, isn't he? I would say to her how they need her instead of Nikki, we need you. You know, he's not talking directly to Nikki, is he? He's talking in the third person. I think for me, you'd be saying to the camera, "Nikki, please, we need you. That's what your daughters need you. I need you. Please come home." Not in the third person. Very strange.
And we're never going to be the same until she is back. Just come home.
Are you going to be okay?
Another stupid question by Dan. Are you going to be okay? What sort of a question is that? Are you going to be okay? Of course he's not going to be okay if his partner's disappeared and nobody knows where she is.
I will, as long as she comes home. But yeah, I have to be okay for the children. But obviously the hope inside me that
Hope again.
that she's going to come home. That I can't let myself, you know, think of anything else. It isn't an option in my head. We deserve a happy ending to all of this. You know, you can't have this level of support, this level of love and compassion and hope and prayers without getting the reward from that. In my mind, that is impossible. You know.
It's very odd, this, what he's saying. Very, very odd. Again, he's not saying, oh yeah, you know, again to the camera, like not saying, "Nikki, please go." He's talking to Dan. He's not talking to Nikki at all. In fact, he rarely mentions her name in the whole interview. But he's not talking to Nikki. I think whatever the truth, whether it's foul play or not, he knows this whole interview. He is talking about Nikki as if she is no longer there. He's not talking to Nikki.
When you think of all the hope and everything that's going out there, it has to come back. And that has to bring her home.
I really appreciate you talking to us. I know it's impossibly difficult. You've described your life at the minute as a living hell. I hope what you said makes a difference as well. And I think everybody watching this will join me in saying that we all hope that Nikki comes home and that she is safe and well and you can be back together.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Once again, here are the numbers for you to call. If you think you can help, either call 101 and say you believe you have more information about the Nicola Bulley investigation. For any immediate sightings, please call the well-known number 999. I know we've all, been captivated by Paul and the words that he said tonight. Palm and Mark, you're both former police officers. Where do the police go from here?
I think one of the main things they need to do is they need to keep talking to the press. They need to keep that story coming out there and be as transparent as you can, be as open as you can. Listen to the family. Paul has made some specific requests what he wants the police to do. Listen to him.
Do you know, but every time the police listen to this twonk talking, they think, for God's sake, who made you the king of the police?
And do that. And then third thing, which is probably the biggest thing, is keep everything on the table. There are three options here. She went in the water, she disappeared herself off her own back, or there was a third party. And let's be really clear, the fact that there isn't any evidence to support a third party doesn't mean to say there isn't one.
And Palm?
In my view, the police have got to keep those options open and really throw themselves into that investigation. I know that they can get the answers, and I know that working with the community together, they can give the closure to this family, and they need that closure.
And Peter, talk about the family. You spent a lot of time with the family, particularly with Paul over the last few days. He is clearly holding on to that hope with all he's got at the moment.
I spent 2 hours with him yesterday, and what he needs. Paul needs some form of closure, one way or the other, and that's the only way for him. He's a distressed man. I mean,
So you spent 2 hours with him the day before. Wonder why Paul totally blanked him in the end. Something must have happened. To take Paul's words, something happened. Find out what it is. Something happened that Paul stopped taking Peter's calls, blanked him completely. And Emma, of course. Wonder what it was. What the actual thing that happened was that meant that Paul would never speak to Peter again.
he's in pieces. I've spent a lot of time with him.
But the whole community are behind him, and if we just hope for some good news.
Everyone is behind them. Everybody's. He's been cleared of everything. He's not involved in this. He's absolutely cleared. So everyone, please back Paul and not stop all this social media rubbish. You know, he's a good man.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to spend the evening with you. Thank you.
He's a good man. I wonder if he still thinks he's a good man. He doesn't think that Peter's a good man, obviously, because he's blanked him completely. Unless, well, we'll see what happens on the 2nd of February. Do you think Peter's going to pop up on the next programme or not? It'd be interesting to see if they mention him at all, because these three are the stars of this one. So let's see what happens in the next one. Oh, I hope Mark Williams-Thomas is not on it again, that's for sure.
Thank you. So Friday, January the 27th, should have been just another day, a day when Nicola Bulley should have been simply dropped her 2 young daughters off at school, taken her dog for a walk along the river, spoken to her colleagues and gone home. But it wasn't just another day. It was, in her partner's words, we've heard them tonight, the day when unprecedented hell began. Nicola isn't just a face on a poster. She's a mum. She's a daughter.
I don't like that picture there. Anyway, never mind, because we're going to look at more things later.
She is loved by her family and by her friends. They all want the answer to the question we began this programme with tonight. Where is Nicola Bulley? Thank you for watching.
And we still don't really know. Well, Peter knew. He knew where she was, didn't he? Because he'd found the target. But anyway, never mind. So there you go. That's the. I thought it'd be a good thing to look at it because you forget, don't you? You know, I mean, it's a long time since I have watched it a couple of times, but I think the last time was probably maybe 6 months ago. So it's been good to watch it again. And then when we watch the one on the 2nd of February, which I'm going to try my very best to record, you know, now that you know, because you have to record things these days because everything disappears as far as this case is concerned. If you don't record it quick, it's gone. So I'm going to try and record it and then we'll watch it together. But I'm sure you'll all be watching it anyway. But when we watch it together and we can comment on it, etc., and see, I bet you any money, one thing I can be sure that's going to happen on the 2nd of February is they're going to have a little whinge about TikTok ghouls and armchair detectives and social media sleuths. You know, they're milking it for all they can get out of it, and nobody else is allowed to talk about it. You know, it just drives me mad when they say things like that. But anyway, okay, so that's it for tonight. And now I'll see you tomorrow for the Burns night. You've still got time. Remember, send in anything Scottish, like my son's little waistcoat from his christening. Oh, bless. So sweet, so sweet. Somebody said about putting it in a like a frame or something. I think I might do that one day. It'll be one of those things that I'll never get around to. I've got a million things that I never get around to, but it would be nice, yeah, put it in a frame and put it up on the wall. So if you've got anything, thank you to everybody who's already sent me anything Scottish. I've got quite a lot of things now to show you tomorrow, so we're going to have some fun tomorrow, aren't we? And a wee dram of whiskey. I've got this haggis, which I won't be eating, but I will be stabbing it and reciting the poem. If any of you men out there want to do the man's, what do they call it, the lad's address to the lassie or whatever, doesn't matter if nobody does, because I'll get one off the internet, but I'm going to do the lassie's reply, unless somebody wants to do a lassie's reply as well. Anyway, it'd be fun. So we're going to have fun. So thank you so much for going through that with me. It was interesting, wasn't it? It's always interesting. And, you know, believe me, if I'm not trying, I would love to believe Paul. I honestly can say I would love to believe Paul. I would love to think he had nothing to do with anything that happened to Nikki, because, you know, at the end of the day, there's two girls there that need their dad to be, you know, not to be a twonk. So I would love to believe him. And maybe we'll have more light shed on it after the next, when we see the unedited version of that interview. But thank you so much. And night night. Some lovely trolleys. Yeah. Night night, everyone. And remember to live and love wisely, carefully, always. And look after you. Have a bloody massage. Have a pedicure. You know, do something nice for you, and go to a spa or something, and take care of yourselves. And until I see you tomorrow, may your God go with you. Night, 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 night.